Hi there, and welcome to this special bonus episode of Behind Your Eyes. In the month of May, I specifically wanted to pay some attention to Asian women and mental health. It being Asian Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought it would be the perfect time to let Asian women speak their truth. So that is why this month I'm publishing several episodes with a focus on Asian women speaking up about mental health. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Behind Your Eyes. And Sheena is my lovely guest for this episode. So hi Sheena, if you would like to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, Susan. First off, thank you for having me as a guest. It's such an honor. And to everyone who may or may not know me, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. I am a keynote speaker, consultant, podcaster, and author on building self-confidence. Everything really started with my podcast called The Tao of Self-Confidence, where I interview Asian women about their journey to self-confidence. And I've interviewed over 700 Asian women on this topic. It was really important for me to create something that has a better representation for Asian women and also serve as a support system. Because back then, when I was trying to find resource systems that resources that really catered to Asian women's confidence, I couldn't find any, and so I decided to start it. Since then, we've also released a book in February of 2021 called Asian Women Who Boss Up, where we highlight the stories of 18 Asian women who are able to forge their own path, overcome obstacles, and thrive. And in the month of May of this year, I will be launching my first book with Wiley called The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within. So yeah, that's a little bit.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah. First, I want to start with the question that I always open my series with, and that is sincere. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy, of course, when you're trying to do things when you're forging your own path, is never easy, right? There's always going to be bumps along the road. There's going to be highs and lows, but overall, I'm really grateful for everything, right? Even the challenges that I go through, before I would be like, why is this happening to me? Now I change things, in perspective, like, there has to be something good must come out of it, right?
Or
There's a lesson to be learned. Yeah. And it makes it a lot more, not better, but just you're willing to go out there and take the action because something good will come out of it, right?
Yeah.
And the more we see things that way, the more things will attract to us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift that you have to make. Like, instead of seeing just the struggles, see also the lessons that you can learn from it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned already that the May is Asian Heritage Month, but also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I would love to merge those two and talk about mental health among Asian women. So I would love to know if you know if that's a topic that's easily talked about in the community.
It's definitely not. I mean, not just Asian women, but just, in our community in general. Mental health is something that's not really talked about. I mean, we've been getting mental health has been getting, more and more mainstream since the pandemic, but culturally, we're not told to share our feelings, to share what we're going through. And because of that, we go through so many different things, mental health issues, confidence issues. We become targets of Asian hate crimes because, if we don't say that something's wrong, then they're just going to keep, targeting us, right? Especially women. A report mentioned that Asian women are 2.5 times more targeted than men in Asian hate crimes. And even in the workplace, we're just seen as the hard worker. We're not being, promoted to higher levels of corporate. There's also a report mentioning that in 2021 in the US, Asian women only represented 2.7% in management corporate roles, high corporate roles. And then I think earlier or in September, October of 2022, it fell down 80%. So I mean, it was the main reason why I started to write the book. It's like, why is it that we're not advancing as much, right? And I really want to help create better leaders, more Asian women leaders, because there have been some amazing Asian women who've been able to forge their own path, forge the path, trailblaze the path, break barriers, make history. But there's still a lot of us who suffer. And it's not just in the US or Canada. I mean, globally, right? Even in Asian countries, there's still a lot of things that doesn't make sense, that really cater to men over women. And so of course that stops us as well. And so all these things that we go through, it does stop us from moving forward. So that's why it's important to learn to not even like be aware of our trauma, right? We all go through some form of trauma, but sometimes we're not even aware of the trauma that's blocking us, that's stopping us. And there's a lot of leadership books out there, but there wasn't any that really kind of like, let's start from the beginning. Why is it that you're feeling this way? Why is it that, you look at something and it triggers you? Why is it that, you feel down on yourself or you're going through different emotions in your life? And, sometimes it's not even the trauma that we carry, but we carry the trauma of our ancestors. Like intergenerational trauma is really prevalent. They say it goes four generations deep, but I think it goes deeper than that for us. Historically, there's just been a lot of traditions that Asian countries had that really catered to men over women, right? This notion that as men they want to bear sons to carry the family name. And so like in China, right, you can have multiple wives, you can have concubines back in the day, so that there was a bigger chance of bearing a son, right? And that was like big importance. And there's still a lot of traditions that in Asia that follow, right? Like child marriage is still prevalent, arranged beauty surgeries. And so that's another thing too, right? A lot of beauty standards for Asian women stems from Western civilization, like having a line in the eyelid, that was because of one person who decided that it would look better on us, or having fair skin, right? Because if you have darker skin, you're not considered beautiful. So it's unfortunate when you go to different parts of Asia. I mean, there's huge billboard ads with whitening products, and people don't realize like whitening products is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's not just us consuming it, it's other cultures as well. And so there's always a lot of factors that we go through, right? A lot of trauma could stem from our childhood, could be PTSD, could be sexual, could be racial, could be money even, cultural. But nobody ever talks about this. And it's important we talk about it because even though it may seem like I'm catering to Asian women, a lot of people can relate to trauma. A lot of people can relate to mental health. A lot of people can relate to, going through racism or sexism, right? It's just that, there wasn't a lot of books that really came from a voice that, from an Asian woman's voice, right? Especially when it comes to leadership.
And how do you see that, like suppressing your feelings and not talking about mental health, how does that show up or manifest in your life?
Oh my God, like I know when I feel repressed, like I feel trapped. I feel like I'm trapped in my own body because I'm not allowed to express my full self. I'd start just, thinking about all these things in my head. And as women, we're naturally overthinkers. Right? So we keep thinking about it and not doing anything, it's going to drive us insane. And so sometimes I just have to go out and take a walk or jog to just kind of let it all out, right? Or talk to somebody, talk to my family, talk to my friends, just to let it out, because we need some form to release those feelings out, whether it's working out, even just going in the bathroom and screaming, or talking to somebody, or even talking to a mental health professional, right? There's no shame in that. But back then it was like if you went to a mental health professional, you were considered crazy. And in Asian culture, it's like if we're going through something, we just don't talk about it. We figure if we don't talk about it, it will go away and everything will be back to normal. But that's not how it works, right? The more we keep it to ourselves, the worse we feel, the worse, everything becomes worse, right? We feel like we can't show up as our true self. We feel like we have to live a certain way or be a certain way. And that really, eats us, like, it takes a lot, right? We become tired and burnt out and drained because we can't even show up as ourselves. So it's crazy.
Mm. And you said there are a lot of negative stereotypes that are attached to the Asian community. And what do you see that are those stereotypes and how should they be changed?
Oh yeah, I mean, for centuries we've been seen as quiet and submissive and obedient. And so because of that, we're treated as sex objects instead of leaders. And so
Mhm.
that's why it's so important to create better representation, to showcase that, we're not quiet, we're not submissive, we're not obedient. We're strong, we're powerful, we're courageous. And here's some examples of amazing Asian women who've been able to do that. And that's why representation is so important, because
Mhm.
if we're constantly seen as quiet and we say and we speak up because we just want to share our opinions, it's like people look at us and they're like, I thought you were quiet. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you're talking to the wrong person. And even like, last year, there was an article that was printed by a mainstream media platform here in the States, and it was a sponsored article about how to get an Asian mail order bride. And that was just, terrifying. Like, it was just terrible, right? Because,
Like in
you
this current day and age, that is
yeah, and it's like, here are the top 5 countries. You can go find one. This is how you get one. This is why you would want one. And it's just like degrading language. It's like, there was like in Vietnam, women love male leadership, and it's like, who talks like that?
yeah,
So that's why it was so important. This is why it's so important to create better representation. We're not just like
yeah,
an item you can order off a catalog, right? And people don't understand the trauma that Asian mail order brides, or not just Asian, but female mail order brides go through, right? The abuse, it's human trafficking, they get pimped out, there's just so many things that affect them, right? Even a couple years back, or maybe 5 years back, NBC was about to greenlight a show about a comedian's life experience when her father brought home a Filipino Asian mail order bride. And so, of course, everyone was, up in an uproar because, like, how could you greenlight the show? Like, this is offensive, right?
yeah,
And it's, you know, now you're showing that it's okay to be a male or Asian, like an Asian mail order bride. And
yeah,
so it's a good thing it got canceled before it even got before the pilot episode came out. But things like this really hurts us, right? It's
yeah.
not right. And it's not just us too. It's, I always believe when, one woman gets hurt, everyone gets hurt, right?
It has a
Why
ripple effect on so many layers.
yeah, it goes beyond our culture, because I mean, it's not just Asian women who are mail order brides. There's Russian, there's African, there's all kinds, right? But nobody ever
Yeah,
talks about it. So this is
exactly.
why it's important to bring the traumas that we go through,
Mhm.
to find different ways to heal from it, to find different ways to have outlets to talk about it or release it, so that we can become better, right? It's kind
Mhm.
of like working out. You just don't work out for a day. You got to do it every single day. You got to work on yourself,
Mhm.
because maintenance is the hardest part. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you first start working out, it's great. You lose 10 pounds in like a month, but then it gets harder as you're maintaining it, right?
Mhm.
Same thing with mental health and confidence. We got to work on it
Yeah.
every single day.
Mm. And you empower Asian women, like you said, to boss up. And what needs to change for Asian women to feel more empowered?
I think just having more representation, for me, it's always leading by example. I show up all the time because I know it's important. And
Mhm.
so when people see me show up, then, then they feel like, well, if she's showing up, then I can show up,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And, being a leader is not being first. It's like, doing something that you don't know what's going to happen, but you're trailblazing that way.
Mhm.
And then eventually people will see it, and they ride with you, right? They're in the same mission or path as you are.
Mhm.
So it's really important to keep on creating better representation, to create safe spaces where we can talk, we can connect with each other. Networking is really important, because that's something we're not taught in school. We're not taught in our culture to network
Mhm.
with other people. So sometimes when I go to networking events, it's like I might be the only Asian woman, or there's like two or
Mhm.
three of us, and then in a crowd of like 50. So it's really important to create spaces, to constantly create better representation, especially in the media, so we can
Mhm.
dismantle the negative stereotypes we still face.
And are there still stereotypes like in K-drama, K-pop? I don't know if that is the case.
I mean, yeah, I mean there will always be, right? Of
Mm,
course. But there's also great representation of like a powerful female CEO, right?
hmm
Who is running her empire.
Right.
That's powerful as well. Or someone who can kick butt, right?
Yeah.
So I mean it's there's always good and bad in everything, right? But
Right.
um K-dramas are really great because it does share like these amazing, compelling stories. And sometimes you just need something lighthearted too, right? To kind of like
Yeah.
escape from everything.
hmm
Um, of course, they're gonna have someone who's like, the damsel in distress and is gonna be saved by the knight in shining armor. And of
Yeah.
course that hurts us, right? Especially as women, because we feel like, we're always waiting for something to happen versus we should just go out there and make things happen,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
Disney's another culprit, right? When you see the
Yeah.
fairy tales, it's like, don't worry, Prince Charming's gonna save you, but in real life, that that rarely happens. You've got to go out there and take action.
Yeah. You have to save yourself.
Yes, for sure.
And you also mentioned that you have a new book that's The Tower of Self-Confidence. So I would love to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This is coming out in May of this
Mhm.
year. So it's, really a guide to kind of help you, push through what you're going through, right? Like I mentioned, everyone goes through trauma, but not everyone is aware of their traumas, right?
Right.
Um, or sometimes they don't realize that trauma is stopping them from moving forward. So it's really talking about the things we don't normally talk about, like the
Mhm.
model minority myth, what Asian women face, different types of trauma, intergenerational trauma,
Mhm.
and finding ways to heal through that, through self-love, through talking to a therapist if needed, and then building self-confidence, right? So because we
Mhm.
really got to get to the root cause. There's a lot of leadership books out there, which is great, but a lot of them are really how to be a
Mhm.
leader. It's great that there is a how-to manual, but mentally, if you don't believe that you're going to be a leader, you're not going to show up as the
Oh yeah.
best leader, right?
Yeah.
So
For
this
sure.
is why it's important to kind of just go through the ugly stuff, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not going to be pretty. So you can show up as your best self, right? You don't
Right.
want your trauma to control you. You want to be able to, control it, right? As
Right.
much as you can, right? Just say, I know this happened. And, just because it happened 20 years ago doesn't mean it's going to happen today.
Yeah.
And that's how our brain works sometimes, right? When something horrific happens to us, our brain likes to protect us because they think it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
But really, you can tell your brain, like, that happened 20 years ago. Don't worry about it. Things are different. We're
Yeah.
gonna do this. And I'm guilty of it too, right? I still go through fears, anxiety, imposter syndrome, but I now have tools and resources that can help me keep moving forward.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the biggest things I tell people is be okay to ask for help.
Mhm.
Because that's something in our culture that's not taught either.
Right.
When we ask for help, it's considered a weakness or a handout. And, it shouldn't be. Especially as women, we should learn to help each other out, collaborate.
Yeah.
A lot of women want support, but are afraid to ask for it because of that, right? We've
Yeah.
been conditioned to be like the superwoman and do everything. But
Right.
that's not sustainable. Men constantly do things together, and that's why they move faster than women. So
Mhm.
that's one big tip that I always tell people. Be
Mhm.
okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Hire a coach, hire a mental health therapist, surround yourself with like-minded women, be part of a community, whatever that help looks like, reading a book, listening to
Right.
podcasts, things like that.
Yeah, because it's always considered a strength that you do it all on your own. But I
Yeah.
think it's a strength if you ask for help.
Yeah, it is, right? And our vulnerability can be our greatest strength.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we still see that as a weakness
Yeah.
usually. So yeah, that needs to be that's also a mindset shift that you have to make. Like, okay, actually
Yeah.
my so-called weaknesses are actually my strengths.
Yeah.
Mm. And I would love to know a bit more about your background and your growing up. And did you ever experience any like mental health struggles yourself?
Oh yeah, of course. I was born in the Philippines. My family moved to Canada when I was 7.
Mm,
And that's how everything really started, just growing up here in Toronto, even though it's a very multicultural city,
mm,
media-wise, there's no one out there that looked like me. So I
mm,
always felt ashamed of who I was, my culture. And it
mm,
wasn't until my 20s where I dyed my hair back from blonde to my original hair color where I felt like myself and
yeah,
I was able to embrace my culture. And
Mm.
so, growing up, I was always scared to do stuff. I couldn't make a decision. I was very insecure. I always thought it was never enough.
Mm.
So I had to work through that. Even, loving myself, I only love the good parts of myself and not the bad parts. And really, self-love is unconditional love. You got to love your imperfect self, right? Because
Mm.
perfection is a myth. And so, yeah, I mean, I go through anxiety, right?
Mm.
Like there's a new challenge that arises because it's like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And I mean, it's normal, right? It's
Mm.
normal. And I think we need to talk more about it. We need to share more that, we go through different seasons in our life.
Mm.
And, we can always learn from them.
Yeah.
Um, Imposter syndrome is still something I deal with, right? Like
Mm.
even when I got approached to write this book, I was like, well, who am I to write a book about leadership?
Mm.
I'm just me.
Yeah.
So, right. And I realized I have to do this to show others what's possible, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So important. If not, no one else will do it, right? And then when the publishing world, it's still 75% is still Caucasian, right? So we
Mm.
need to have more diversity. We need to showcase more diverse authors with specific stories that
Mhm.
can help, create different perspectives or create different solutions.
Mhm. And did you yourself also experience like the negative stereotypes or racism?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, being an Asian woman, in the workplace sometimes they look at you and they think, you're just quiet, you're not gonna say anything. Even like traveling to America when we were kids, we've dealt with racism. They look at us and like we're at a restaurant where they look at us and they don't really want to serve us.
Mm.
So yeah, it's crazy, right?
Mhm.
That we face these things, unfortunately. But we share these stories so that people don't feel like they're the only ones going through it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And what were some of the most inspiring stories that you heard from your book, Asian Women Who Boss Up?
Oh, I mean, the Asian women who boss up book, I mean, they all have amazing stories,
Mm.
but one of them was, this Vietnamese lady who moved from Vietnam to the US on a boat, right? And they were stranded in the middle of the ocean for a week, and they almost got kidnapped by Thai pirates. So yeah. So they got saved by the Navy SEAL. She was also a part when she got kidnapped. She was her and her parents were separated, but they were able to reunite after they got saved and was able to move to California.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was like, there's Asian pirates? I didn't even know.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's all. It's so powerful because how is she doing these days?
Oh, she's doing amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
she's out there helping people out and being able to help people with their own things through her storytelling. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing. I love stories like that.
me too.
And what are some of your favorite either like tools or techniques to stay mentally healthy currently?
I mean, working out is something that I really love to do, especially when the weather's warmer. I like to jog outside. I just like
Mhm.
being near water or, just nature and just being able to mind dump as I'm jogging.
Mhm.
Um, Having a community of, like-minded women is really important.
Mhm.
So having that, being able to talk to them about different things, whether it's good or bad,
Mhm.
being able to read books, being able to watch. I love watching people's interviews a lot because I love the stories that they share, the struggles they went to get to where they are today, right? So
Mhm.
it makes me realize like, okay, I know my journey is not going to be as easy, and I'm
Mhm.
okay with that. We just got to keep pushing through so that we can create the changes that we want to see.
Mhm.
So, especially with the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? You look at the stars, right? Like Ke Huy Quan, 40 years, right? Or over 20 years, he stopped acting and went back to it and now won an Oscar. Michelle Yeoh
Yeah.
has been in Hollywood for over 40 years, right? Just finally
Mhm.
got her moment now. Even
Mhm.
James, he's been in Hollywood for 70 years, right?
Mhm.
So people don't understand that, it's not an overnight success. It takes work day in and day out to get to where it is today.
Yeah.
Um, but at least they're able to pave that way for us, so it's a little bit easier to keep the conversation going.
Mhm. And what do you see in your like near future? How do you want to continue to, spread that message that you have?
For me, it's always creating different forms of media to elevate the voices. Media is so powerful. When you look at, K-dramas has been such a great example of creating worldwide success, having a diverse audience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even though they don't speak in English, right? Most of the time when it's a foreign movie or film or artist, it's like you're basically not even part of the equation, right? And so seeing that is really amazing. And that's what I want, be able to create the visibility that we deserve, right? To be seen as
Mm-hmm.
leaders, to be seen as strong, to be seen as courageous, and really dismantle the negative stereotypes we go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably still quite a long way to go, but at least, steps are being
Gotta
taken.
start somewhere.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. That's the most important thing, that, like I said, steps are taken. Women are showing up and bossing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's the most important. And hopefully I can contribute, even if it's just a tiny bit.
For sure. I mean, every little bit counts. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, my last question is always also the same one, and that is, when are you at your happiest?
Um, I think I'm at my happiest when I get to explore some, a different location. Traveling's really great. And so sometimes, I'll just go out there and, just explore, walk the streets, try different
Mm,
foods, take pictures. Like
mm,
last year I went to Paris for the first time. It was actually my first time being in Europe ever. Just being able to just walk along the streets, try different things, check out the main tourist attractions like the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower. That was just like, amazing, right? Because I mean,
mm.
Paris is beautiful. Everywhere you go is like it's an Instagram photo waiting to happen. And then the croissants are so good.
Yeah, so addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's amazing that you say that, because to me that is like, as different cultures we can still learn so much from each other, and I think that's the most important lesson. Like, stay open and curious about each other cultures, even if it's different than what you're used to. Be open, be curious.
Yeah, for sure. It's so important. And that's, curiosity builds confidence, right? So
Mhm.
the more curious you are, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay open and be willing to learn. And thank you so much for today and for, being here with me. And
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, it was really a joy to talk to you. And I wish you all
Yeah,
the best on your journey in empowering Asian women.
thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. And, for anyone who would like to get a copy of the book, they can order it on Amazon. So I hope you enjoy reading it.
Thank you so much.